Sergeant Whitson, I want to read you what's in the ransom note. It's addressed to Mr. Ramsey. I mean, not Mr. John Ramsey, Mr. Ramsey. $118,000.
Oh, John, when Patsy called, I thought you'd had a heart attack. Patsy, what is it? What's wrong?
No, people will say, oh, when she calls 911, how does she know how it's signed if she only saw the first page? 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It was chaos that morning, and I really thought I could get Jomini back. I really did.
It's two. She dies. She dies. She dies. She dies. Yeah, it's signed Victory SBC. No, sir, I have no idea. Well, a bunch of their friends have come over.
It gets back to this protecting your children. We let a lot of people into our home. We thought it was a Ozzie and Harriet kind of place, and turned out it wasn't.
Yeah, altogether, they threatened to kill her 6 times.
Barbara. Is Patsy all right?
She's in there. Yes, sir.
Hours went by, but no word from the kidnappers.
We're waiting for the call. It's torture.
At this point, investigators were getting suspicious.
Take this immediately to Commander Eller.
Mr. White and Mr. Fernie are going to take you over to play with Daphne, okay? Attaboy. Attaboy.
Although the note is just really bothering me.
When we come back, chaos and condemnations.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Now, I hope those dramatizations from Perfect Murder, Perfect Town, a documentary that came out on CBS in 2000, I hope that helps to illustrate the chaos that we're talking about. And if you think about, there's an unknown kidnapper in a genuine situation, there's an unknown kidnapper, you're really going to invite a lot of people, not family members, a lot of people into your home and have the doors opening and closing and people coming and going and policemen and civilians sort of mixing it up. If you don't want to solve the case, yes. Now, coming back to John Fernie, there are about 20 references to John Fernie in Schiller's book. That's about a quarter as many references as there are to Fleet White. But this is the one that stands out, and it's Fernie complaining about the footprints in the snow story. And in his book, Schiller addresses this via a news report from the Rocky Mountain News dated March 11, 1997, less than 3 months after the incident. Snow at Ramsay house lacked footprints. Police who went to JonBenet Ramsey's home the morning that she was reported missing found no footprints in the snow surrounding the house, sources said Monday. This is one of the earliest details that caused investigators to focus their attention on the slain girl's family, police sources said. So certainly the snow evidence or lack of was a very important area, possibly as important as the Ramsey ransom note, for the police to start taking a particular line in terms of their theory. Now, going to Schiller's narrative, John Fernie was angry when he read that story by Charlie Brennan about footprints. Like many media stories, this one came from an unnamed source and made the Ramseys look guilty. He didn't like that. Fernie wondered if the source had provided the reporter with all the facts. This is the important part. John Fernie knew that his own footprints were there in the snow that morning. He had driven up the back alley to the Ramsey's house just after 6 a.m. in response to Patsy's frantic call that terrible morning. He remembered walking along the brick sidewalk to the patio door, looking through the glass panel and reading a line or two from the ransom note, which was lying on the floor just inside the door. Now, that is a part that is not really mentioned elsewhere. And that's something that John Fernie himself doesn't mention, that the note is now just inside the door. Then he had run through the snow-covered grass. That's important. He had run through the snow-covered grass, not walked, around the south side of the house to the front door. If the cops had been looking, they would have found his footprints. But in the dramatization I've just showed you, Fernie arrives at the house after Officer French. And so if Officer French arrived, he would see the snow without any footprints on it, including John Fernie's. Going back to Schiller's account, a year and a half after John Bonet's death, Fernie told a reporter that the police still had not checked the shoes he wore that day, though a shoe imprint had been discovered next to John Bonet's body. Now you might say, wow, the police really fixated on the Ramsays, but there is a reason that they weren't interested in his shoe prints, because the shoe imprint that they discovered next to John Bonet's body came from a high-tech shoe, which was later verified by several people to be Burke's shoe, and I think Burke even said something similar, that, well, that was my shoe on Dr. Phil. Carol McKinley, a reporter for Denver's KOA AM radio, disliked the way some reporters used the word source without further identification. So what you can clearly see is that in a year or two after these incidents, the Fernies still supported the Ramsays. The question is, what happened to that support? And it's not just in terms of John Fernie, it's also Barbara Fernie. Now, to reiterate the line of inquiry that we sort of established in the previous video, part 1, if John Fernie knew that his footprints were in the snow, then there was snow after all, wasn't there? And then in a single moment, we can wipe away all of that nonsense from Detective Lou Smith. And do you know, Fernie basically went the route along the exterior of the house that the intruder was supposed to have gone. He seems to be the only person that I'm aware of that did go that particular route, both to and from the area right outside the kitchen door, which is where the grate was. And we very seldom see this angle of that grate and just how ridiculous it is to go in there or to come out of there, because for God's sake, there's a glass door right there. There are windows surrounding it from every side. Why on earth would you go in from that side? And of course, what Fernie doesn't say is whether he noticed any footprints in the snow. Curiously, despite apparently observing and reading the ransom note through the door, Fernie didn't seem to remember anything about Reverend Hoverstock, and we're going to go back to his transcript and what he says about that. Now, the moment Reverend Hoverstock arrived at the Ramsay home is dramatized in this moment from Perfect Murder, Perfect Town.
Okay, 404 up into Washington. Good night, at 64.
Hello, Reverend Hoverstock. Thank you for coming.
Of course, Jim.
Now, before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to this channel and you're interested in the Ramsay case, maybe it's time that you did subscribe. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, Timmy asked me to ask you, can you please put in a super thanks for him? Because that might mean he's going to get a special treat. Timmy, what do you say? Timmy, are you saying you would really like a treat? Okay, Timmy, I'll see what I can do. All right, and with that out the way, let's get back to our analysis. Now, you can see just how chaotic the comings and goings really are that morning, the day after Christmas, when they are dramatized. The doorbell is constantly ringing, the front door opening and closing. Fleet and John Fernie leave out the front door with Burke just as newcomer arrives, Reverend Hoverstock. I've just shown you a clip of that. The person who's coming from the left-hand side as the squad car drives away, that is the Reverend Hoverstock. Now, in their book, The Death of Innocence, John Ramsay describes the scene inside the Ramsay home that morning as a zoo. The house starts to feel like a zoo. Well, wasn't that by design? Wasn't that the plan?
Because it's all part of the plan.
The Reverend's name is butchered in the transcript, and it's not clear whether Fernie makes any attempt to correct the pronunciation. But if Fernie was a church guy, wouldn't he know more than most this Reverend, and really he doesn't remember anything about the Reverend at the scene? Well, let's go to the transcript. John Fernie is asked in court, do you have a recollection of, is it Father Overstock? Fernie responds, Overstock, right? Overstock being there? Fernie says, I don't believe so. Then he's asked, now during the course of that tragic day, at least you, Mrs. White, yourself, had occasion to view and read the note and talk about some of the issues concerning it. Is that correct? He answers, I believe so. Then he's asked, did you receive, were there police officers there that day? Fernie, answer, yes. And you were talking to police officers during the course of that day? Yes, occasionally. Did you receive any admonition about commenting on that note? Fernie, I don't recall that. He's asked, did you receive any admonition from any police officers on scene that this note shouldn't be out there in the public? John Fernie, I don't recall a specific admonition. Did it eventually come to your attention that the note had gotten into kind of the media circus? John, yeah. So John Fernie was definitely paying attention to the media, and he says, and it was, I don't recall when, I think it was some while later, I mean weeks or months. I really don't have specific recollection. And then the lawyer says nothing further. The court then offers a cross-examination, and Mr. Hall says, Mr. Fernie, you weren't given a copy of that note, were you? And he answers no. And then that is it. That is the end of the direct examination and redirect. Now, there could be an innocent explanation for Fernie arriving first, and as early as he did. Perhaps if he genuinely believed he was responding to an emergency, perhaps he drove like a maniac, and perhaps he ran the odd red light. Perhaps there's also an innocent explanation regarding the footprints in the snow. Perhaps the police assumed there weren't, not because they checked, but because of where the evidence seemed to be pointing. But even if that is all true, what is interesting is that while the Fernies opened their home to the Ramsays after John Bonet's body was discovered in the basement, I mean, that's where the Ramsays went, from their home to the Fernies' home. And while Barbara Fernie is the woman at Patsy's side, did you know that? The woman at Patsy's side, when the Ramsays emerge out of St. John's Episcopal Church, well, I think Barbara was the one who went to fetch a prescription for Patsy that Dr. Buffe had written on the 26th or 27th. But then that loyalty, that solidarity would fizzle over time. And interestingly, it was Barbara Fernie who also started to develop reservations. And I think what is a very interesting question is, in all of these interviews that John Ramsay gives, do you ever have a friend by his side like they were by his side that morning where he called all those people? Do you have the Reverend ever saying words of support and reinforcement and validating his version of events? Do you have any of the other four people, Fleet White, Priscilla White, John Fernie, Barbara Fernie, at this late stage of the game saying, you know what, we're still on John's side, we still believe in John? Where are they, and what does it say if that solidarity fizzled over time? Why? Does anyone know why? Does anyone want to know why? And while we know that John Fernie had an issue with the footprints in the snow and he thought that the police didn't check his footprint and nobody asked him, while that was the area that he was troubled with and interested in, Barbara Fernie had another reservation that was completely different. Does anyone in the comments know what that was? And if you don't know, would you like me to deal with that in the next episode? Well, if you do, let me know in the comments. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.